So after the craziest race of the year came to an end in Zandvoort, well, it was only 1 week to wait for the next. As for round 14 of the season, it was time to head to Italy, and this time to a venue that wasn't underwater. With action at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, a home Grand Prix for Ferrari and their devoted fans, the Tifosi. Though after recent years, I'm pretty sure the Ferrari fans could rebrand themselves as a recovery group for those who've suffered from trauma and depression. Coming into the weekend, and eyes were on Max Verstappen, who was 1 race win away from history, as after matching Sebastian Vettel's 9 in a row last time out, a win in Monza would make it 10, leaving all non-Verstappen fans looking something like this come the race on Sunday. Hey guys, it's Taran and welcome to round 14 of the 2023 F1 season in Italy. Now, before we get going, as always, just want to give you guys a quick reminder that if you do end up enjoying the video, to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for the remaining content this year. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into my honest review of Formula 1 and the 2023 Italian Grand Prix. So what had been happening between races then? Well, over at Ferrari, they brought out a special one-off livery for their home race. Would it be something like the McLaren Golf we've seen previously? Or maybe something stylish like the Japanese Red Bull livery? No, someone at the factory had just spilt a bit of yellow paint on the engine cover.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
But along with the new car, there was also a set of race suits to go with it. Which I don't know about you, but they kind of remind me a little bit of a certain fast food franchise. I'm kind of expecting the behind the scenes to go something like this. Hello, welcome to Mick Ferrari, can I take your order please? Yeah, I'll have 1 portion of decent strategy with a side of some good luck. Yeah, we're all out of those, I'm afraid. Best I can get you is some slow pit stops and lots of mistakes instead. At Alfa Romeo, and they had a special livery too, and actually made some effort, with the result speaking for itself. Over at Mercedes, and after a disastrous weekend in the Netherlands, there was some good news for fans, with Lewis Hamilton and George Russell announced to be re-signing until 2025, keeping the lineup the same for at least 2 seasons. I'm sure they'll enjoy looking forward to 40-odd races of finishing 3rd, 4th or 5th. And finally, in the Max Verstappen camp, his broken trophy from the Hungarian GP had been repaired and was being returned, with Lando Norris around to see the first place vase being presented, but the Brit jokingly not being allowed to touch it. Still the closest a non-Red Bull driver has got to a first place trophy all year. Into practice then, and with the green light, all 20 cars were eager to get some laps in. Well, nearly all 20 cars, as Joe's Alfa Romeo decided that the end of the pit lane was as far as it wanted to go before being pushed back for repairs. Over at Aston Martin, and in for an FP1 session as a young driver, was Felipe Drugovich. Unfortunately for fans, it was confirmed that he would only be in for FP1, and that sadly Lance Stroll would return back to the car for FP2 onwards. Into FP2 then, and as mentioned, after sitting out FP1, Lance Stroll was back in the Aston Martin, and then almost instantaneously back out again, with the car dying just minutes into the session. Seems even the car is fed up with the Canadian driving it. Into the rest of the action though, and early eyes were on Lewis Hamilton, with the Brit clearly not using his to look in the mirrors as he parked his Mercedes on the Turn 4 apex, getting in Piastri's way. I guess that's one way the Mercedes team can attempt to hamper McLaren's progress. However, the Mercedes driver wasn't the only one contributing to the traffic, as Sergio Perez and quite frankly everyone came across the car park that was the back straight. But as it turned out for Checo, the biggest problem wasn't actually the other cars and the traffic they caused, but in fact his own driving ability, as the Mexican tried out a line through Parabolica that was a bit too wide and ended up getting himself stuck in the gravel. This brought out a red flag, which for all intents and purposes ended Friday's running. On to FP3, and over at Williams it was a few minor issues to begin the session, with a broken mirror on Logan Sargent's car. Don't worry though Logan, based on your performance this year, it's not really like you're going to need to use them anyway. Over at Red Bull, and for Checo Perez, a new day hadn't exactly stopped his issues, as his car decided to have an oil leak that kept him out for most of the session. At McLaren, and it was a bit of an annoying session for them too, not because of their drivers, but well because of everyone else. With Lando the first of the pair to be blocked on one of his laps, and then Carlos Sainz deciding to get into the way of Oscar Piastri, to the point where there was actually contact. Into qualifying, and given it was one of a trial format, it was hard tyres only for Q1, with Lando Norris trying to set his lap but Esteban Ocon deciding to get in the way at the final corner. And if the Frenchman wasn't busy getting in someone else's way, well, he was causing himself problems, as he went wide through the Asari chicane and kicked up a load of gravel, along with costing himself his lap time. And sadly for Alpine, well, their misery didn't end there, with both cars knocked out of qualifying. Still did better than Lance Stroll though. Into Q2, and it was exclusively the medium tyre for running in the second part of qualifying, with Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes struggling and sitting in the drop zone after the first runs. But with a better lap second time round, he was up to 5th and through to the top 10, with the AlphaTauri pair narrowly missing out on Q3, but still a good showing from Lawson on his first full weekend. Into Q3 then, and after the first runs, it was Verstappen on provisional pole. Nope, I'm only joking, he was down in 3rd after dipping a wheel in the gravel on his lap at turn 4. Instead, it wasn't just one Ferrari at the top, but 2 of them, with Carlos Sainz leading his teammate in first place. On to the final runs, and Leclerc was first across the line and took provisional pole away from Carlos. But not before Max Verstappen came along and beat them both, putting his car in first place, until Carlos Sainz said, "I don't think so," and took back pole position by just 13 thousandths of a second. On to Sunday then, and after lining up on the grid, we were eager to get going. Sadly, Yuki Tsunoda's AlphaTauri wasn't, as it broke down on the formation lap, delaying the start for everyone. Still, one extra lap with a Ferrari at the front, I guess. Once back on the grid though, and after the mechanic stampede began to cool the cars and warm the tyres while we waited to start, after about 10 minutes we could actually get going, with everyone behaving very well down into turn 1 with a couple of position swaps such as Piastri getting past Albon, something that Alex was pretty eager to sort out. As down to turn 4 he made his way back past the McLaren, retaking 6th on pace in his Williams. Back up at the front and a couple laps later it was Verstappen catching Sainz with the pair almost side by side into turn 1, with Verstappen electing not to mount the car on his inside, backing out of the move for a later date. A couple places back and Sergio Perez was right on the back of Russell, with the Mexican eyeing up a move into turn 1, with George breaking as late as possible with the inside line to just about hold on to 4th place and keep Checo behind. A couple laps later and it was time for round 2, with Russell and Perez still fighting over 4th, both of them locking up into the first turn and both of them cutting the first corner, along with Checo giving us the worst ever attempt at a "he pushed me off" excuse over team radio. Fast forward just a couple of laps though, and this time Checo had the inside line and after the chicane, 4th place. In the other Red Bull and on lap 15 things were going a bit better for Verstappen, as into turn 1 while defending the inside it was a lock up from Carlos Sainz, giving Max a great run out of the chicane. And down towards turn 4 the pair were side by side, with Verstappen on the inside and making his way past the Ferrari and into first place, with Carlos a couple laps later coming in and triggering the stops for the front runners, with both Ferraris coming out on track almost side by side and narrowly avoiding each other at turn 1, and then turn 4 with Sainz just staying ahead of his teammate. These stops left the McLarens leading, with Norris coming in as the first of them looking to undercut his teammate, with the pair also alongside each other into turn 1 and banging wheels, but managing to escape without any major damage. Meanwhile, this left Lewis Hamilton to take the lead of the race, but on old hard tyres it wasn't long before Max, then Carlos, then Charles and Checo were getting by. This brought him into the pits as the only car running the mediums, not the hards later in the race. Talking of those cars getting by Lewis though, and Sergio Perez was right on the back of Charles, with him getting ahead towards turn 1 but Leclerc braking late to keep the place, and the battle continuing to turn 4 and Perez still right on the back of the Ferrari, before then getting squeezed slightly on the grass and having to settle back in behind Charles, until the very next lap, where with DRS Checo was by before the braking zone up into 3rd place with eyes now on Sainz. Further back and experiencing the effects of a Williams in a straight line, Lando Norris was taking his chance, getting alongside the Williams but having to cut across the chicane and then give the place back to Albon. In behind those and Hamilton had caught up to Piastri, with turn 4 being Lewis's corner of choice to try and overtake, with the Mercedes getting ahead but deciding to squeeze the McLaren with contact between the pair damaging Piastri's front wing, with Hamilton getting a 5-second penalty for the collision but critically for him no damage, meaning he was back on the other McLaren and then passed Lando into 7th place. And a couple laps later it was then Alex Albon's turn, with the Mercedes round the outside at turn 1 and up into 6th, with some clear air to pull over 5 seconds away. Up towards the podium places though, and after a few laps it was Checo's turn for P2, getting by Sainz on the main straight, which left the two Ferraris together on track, with the pair of them using the remaining few laps to fight over the final step of the podium at Monza, with Charles Leclerc doing his very best to take them both out with a double lock-up into turn 1. However, they did manage to survive, and Carlos did manage to take home 3rd place. Up at the front though, and for the first time ever, it was 10 wins in a row for a driver, with Max Verstappen on the top step of the podium, leading home a Red Bull 1-2. Anyways, that is all for now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, do give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for the rest of the season's content. But until next time, take care.